Moishe.
Hello, Mohammed.
So what's new in the news?
Same old stuff. War, crime, sex, politics, sports, corruption. And what are you reading?
The same thing. Except, of course, I'm reading it in Arabic.
Obviously, I'm not ignorant.
Didn't say you were.
So, what did you have to point out to me where it's obvious?
Please, let's not fight.
Oh, you're saying you don't want to fight? An Arab who does not want to fight a Jew? Oh, amazing.
You think all Arabs want to fight?
From what I see on TV and read in the papers, it's hard for me to think otherwise.
Your attitude doesn't surprise me. The news is slanted. It's biased against Arabs. And we Arabs are no more prone to violence than anybody else.
Really? I don't believe it.
You've closed your mind to the truth and have decided to believe all the lies. But what about the Israelis, huh? Shooting innocent Palestinians and tearing down their homes?
Oh, they're just trying to defend themselves against Arab violence.
You mean they're trying to suppress legitimate Arab rage and anger?
I know where this discussion is leading.
That's right, it's leading right in that direction.
Which is about your favorite topic. Or, should I say, obsession. Trashing Israel.
I don't think that Israel is trash. And when you say Israel, you really mean Palestine.
I actually mean Israel.
It's amazing how stubborn you people are.
And it's shocking how intolerant you people are. The state of Israel is a fact that you Arabs have to accept once and for all.
You mean accepting it on your terms?
No. Rather on the terms of the 1947 UN resolution which partitioned Palestine into two states.
Oh, the partition.
That's right.
The 1947 UN vote was a travesty.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. The voting was stacked against the Arabs, who were forced to accept what amounted to a U.S. diktat under the guise of the UN resolution.
Not true. The UN vote was an act of justice that the Arabs obstinately refused to accept.
Justice perhaps for the Jews, injustice for the Arabs.
Well, after World War II, something had to be done to help the Jews.
Granted, but why at the expense of the Arabs?
Nobody took anything from the Arabs.
You took our land.
Well, we purchased the land.
We were forced to sell.
And nobody forced the Arabs to do anything.
Then why did so many Palestinians become refugees?
They chose to leave.
Oh, they had to leave. How could any Arab be expected to live in a Jewish state?
You managed to do it. You never left. In fact, legally, you are an Israeli.
I'm a Palestinian, not an Israeli.
You are an Israeli who happens to be Arab.
Cut the crap! I can't stand it anymore!
Who the heck are you?
I am the Baboon.
What kind of a name is that?
It's a name that perfectly describes who I am. When I hear phonies like the two of you guys typing political crap, I get all agitated and excited and start jumping up and down, making lots of noise like a baboon. Your political posturing makes me sick and mad. All you're doing is using the Mid-East crisis to listen to yourselves talk, not to solve problems. So, cut the bullshit. Get down to brass tacks. Now what's gripping both of you guys? Come on, Mohammed. Tell Moshe the real reason why you're so pissed off at him.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure you know. You just don't want to admit it.
No, I really don't.
Okay. Let me refresh your memory. Remember what happened back in 1948 when Israel took over?
Kind of.
Kind of, you say. How could you ever forget it? Moshe came marching onto your land and gave you 10 minutes to leave. Remember that now?
Wait a minute. I never marched into anyone's land.
What are you talking about? You Israelis came in like gangbusters and told every Palestinian you could find that they gotta leave or else.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. With some nerve. Marching on my land like that. You broke into my home and in front of my wife threatened to kill me if I didn't leave. My wife almost died.
That's not true.
Not true, you say? Weren't you a soldier in the Israeli army in 1948?
I was, but I never forced my way into anybody's land.
Damn no good liar. I remember it like it happened yesterday. You were like a stormtrooper. You barged right into my home, terrorized my family, and told me to get the hell out. Because of you, my entire family had to flee. We had to leave everything behind except the clothes on our backs. Disaster. Who are you to do this to me, huh? I want my home back. We demand the right to return to our homes, so get off my land.
Look, I have no idea what you're talking about. You must be confusing me with someone else.
No confusion. Certainly it was you. You had a whole company of soldiers with you. 50 of you against 1 of me. Never did you any harm. Why did you have to come after me? What did I ever do to you, huh? Get off my land!
Now, the both of you are talking, having some real down-to-earth communication. Don't you think so, Moshe?
I don't know what to think.
Let me help you recollect. According to your Army discharge papers, which I read, you served in the Israeli Army from 1947 to 1971 and retired with the rank of Major. Also, according to that document, and by the way, I have an excellent memory, in 1948 you were awarded a Medal of Valor during operations to clear out the Palestinians from the Galilee.
And that's where I lived. So you see, it was you who threw me off my land.
You know, that paperwork doesn't prove a thing.
And you received a Medal of Honor? For what? For fighting unarmed civilians like me and my family? Did my wife and children pose a threat to you?
Well, maybe not to me personally, but your people did.
Oh. So you admit it. It was you who barged into my house.
I haven't admitted any such thing.
You have a lot of explaining to do. And not just to me, but to the entire world. No. I was born in Palestine, which was renamed Israel when I was just born.
Well, same with me. Yet, I'm an Israeli, not a Palestinian. So why can't you call yourself an Israeli too?
Because Palestine is our land, not yours, and you took it from us by force.
So it's given to us by the United Nations.
A vote that was stacked against the entire Arab world.
And before them, it was the British mandate.
Now, the British were merely caretakers, who should have relinquished control of Palestine to the Arabs.
Not so. In 1917, the British promised the Jews a homeland.
Oh, you're talking about the Balfour Declaration, aren't you?
That's right.
Balfour Declaration was an outrage.
The Balfour Declaration was an act of justice.
The British had no right and no valid cause to promise the Jewish people anything.
They did have the right, and they exercised the right.
What they did was just plain wrong. You know, during World War I, the British and the Arabs, we fought as allies. But apparently that meant nothing to them.
Well, the only reason why you fought with the British was to overthrow the Ottoman Empire. Under those circumstances, you would have allied yourselves with anybody who was fighting the Turks.
Yeah, that's right. But we fought to gain our freedom, not to establish the framework for the founding of a Jewish state. You know, to me, the Balfour Declaration marks the start of our present difficulties.
Then, what were the British expected to do?
Grant us independence.
But it wasn't your country.
We were living there, in a region that was almost entirely Arab.
But Jews were living there too.
Oh, your political grandstanding is driving me crazy. Can't you guys level with each other? Poor Mohammed, thrown off his land, sounding like some kind of bereaved victim.
I was a victim.
It's first-class baloney. You're one nasty son of a gun.
What do you mean?
Well, tell him why.
After I moved to your village, you tried to kill me. No way! I just arrived from Europe. My entire family was gone. You know, I was the sole survivor. There was no one else. I was on my own and had nothing except the clothes on my back. Well, I moved into the little hut that was right next to your farm, and the next thing I knew that you were throwing rocks at me, although I had done nothing to you. Is that how you Arabs normally treat your neighbors?
No, that wasn't you. That was somebody else.
No, it was me you were attacking. Anyway, after that kind of treatment, I decided I had to join the Israeli army in order to defend myself. After the horrible way I was treated in Europe, there was no way that I was going to let anyone treat me that way again. Not by you or anybody.
You were trespassing.
No. That little hut was mine. I had purchased it with a local kibbutz.
That local kibbutz had no right selling my land.
It wasn't your land, it was Israeli land that the kibbutz had purchased fair and square.
Well, that's crap. That land was mine.
You don't know what you're talking about. The kibbutzim offered you a lot of money, and yet you refused.
I had the right to refuse.
But you didn't have a right to attack me.
Never attacked you.
I still have the scars for the rocks that you threw at me. You know, you were a wild man. You're worse than a Nazi.
Well, I was wild. Who invited you to come to Palestine?
The Israeli government.
Your bogus government.
Listen, I'm not going to quibble with you. Maybe what I should do is kick your butt right now.
Oh, come on and try.
Now we're talking.
I know that. But look, the Jews were only a small minority.
Who wanted to have their own country too.
Yes, in a place already inhabited by Arabs.
You know, we keep talking in circles. The fact is that the British did promise the Jews their own homeland.
A gratuitous promise made in a cynical attempt to maintain Western domination over the Arabs.
No.
It's the truth. Given how the Arabs aided the British during World War I, can you honestly say that the Balfour Declaration was fair, that it was just?
Well, Palestine had been the Jewish homeland too.
2,000 years ago.
That's right. And although we were defeated and dispersed, we never disappeared as a people, who want to preserve our link with the past.
While at the same time conveniently disregarding the present.
Well, what are we supposed to do? Forget the
Well,
past?
not forget your past, but take into consideration present circumstance.
Like how the Arabs refused to coexist with us?
Were we expected to passively welcome a massive influx of Westerners into land settled by centuries by us? Huh?
Well, it was our land before it was yours.
And your people lost it. So why should the Arabs have to give back something that was no longer yours? Especially when your loss was not our responsibility. The Arabs did not evict you from Palestine. That was the Romans. So if you have any complaints, you can take it up with them.
Ha ha, don't be so funny.
Don't you be so stupid.
And don't you be so nasty.
How am I being nasty? Because I disagree with you?
No, because of your insensitivity to the needs of the Jewish people. You know, we deserve a homeland too.
Well, you have your homeland. Except that it's at the expense of the Arabs who were dispossessed from their land.
That's not true. After World War I, Palestine became a British mandate, not an independent Arab state. And the British had the authority to create a Jewish homeland.
That is utter rubbish.
Nevertheless, these are the facts. So instead of fighting with the Jews, the Arabs ought to take their complaints to the British and the United Nations, which ratified the founding of the Jewish state.
Once again, I repeat, the Jewish state was forced upon the Arabs. And the UN vote was just a front for maintaining Western influence in the region. The Jews were convenient pawns in achieving this
Your
goal.
argument is ridiculous. Israel was founded not to further the goals of Western imperialism or to suppress the Arabs, but because it was a wish of the Jewish people to have their own independent
Oh,
state.
come on, don't be a fool. Did the Jews hold a plebiscite on the issue?
Of course not. But the Zionist movement was deeply rooted in Jewish history and theology.
That's right. And that's why it was convenient for the Jews to become pawns in the struggle between East and
That's
West.
not true. You know, what you're saying is pure speculation.
Given Europe's history of anti-Semitism, it should be no surprise that the West would have been more than happy to promote the creation of a Jewish state outside of Europe.
You know, that's garbage. The Jewish people themselves were responsible for the founding of the Jewish state. In fact, after World War II, the British did everything they could to block Jewish immigration to Palestine.
The fact is that the British still favored the creation of a Jewish state in Palestine.
But what you guys are talking about now? The Jewish people, British, Europe. Why can't you guys just talk to each other?
We are talking to each other.
No, you're not. You're talking at each other. All you're doing is hiding behind your words. Why don't you get down to brass tacks?
I thought that's what we were doing.
You two guys are the biggest jerks in the world, and that's saying a lot, especially in a world where real intelligence is rare and often abused commodity.
What are you talking about?
Tell him why you are so pissed off at him.
I don't want to go there.
What's the matter? Too much of a wimp to tell the truth?
Well, I'm not a wimp!
You're just
Too painful.
You're just an inflated windbag who blows out noise just to relieve himself.
Okay. Okay. You tried to bang my wife.
What?
After you barged into my house at the point of a gun, you grabbed my wife, ripped off her shawl, and tried to rape her.
This is too much.
You tried to make her do all kinds of disgusting things that I can't even mention.
You know,
All the time forcing me to watch it was horrible.
you're hallucinating.
Hallucinating, is he? I remember having read a certain newspaper article from January 23rd, 1943, which included a large photograph of Palestinian women being herded into a detention center by Israeli soldiers. Seems to me like you guys were very busy rounding up the ladies.
I don't know what either one of you was talking about. The detaining of the Palestinian women was a purely defensive measure. And after screening, they were released. Some of the most fanatical terrorists were women. Regarding your wife, I never touched her.
You philandering bastard. You're not man enough to have a woman of your own, so you screw another man's wife? I saw what I saw. It was you.
First, at the time I was married. Second, it wasn't me. Indeed, during my services as an Israeli soldier, I never abused any women.
You treated us the same way the Nazis treated the Jews, except we refused to take it.
Actually, they turned the whole matter to the United Nations.
They did that because they could no longer impose their will on the Arabs, which was to accept the creation of a Jewish state in Palestine.
But what were the Jews supposed to do after World War II?
That was a matter for the Jews and for the countries of Europe to resolve.
And it was finally resolved through the founding of the State of Israel.
Exactly my point. Israel was founded with the support of the West, which was more than happy to accommodate the needs of the Jewish people in order to maintain Western domination over the Middle East.
You know, your distorted ideas ignore the fact that the Jews alone fought for the creation of Israel.
But you're forgetting that you did so with the help of the United Nations, which endorsed your cause and denied us our right to self-determination. And what good did it do, huh? Over 50 years later, we're still fighting.
You mean the Jews are still defending themselves against the Arabs?
Don't put words in my mouth. My words are clear. The Jews and the Arabs are at war. So why don't you find that ironic? Two Semitic peoples fighting each other. Why should we be fighting? The Arabs never persecuted the Jews. In fact, even under the Ottoman Turks, the Jews were protected.
Well, then instead of opposing us, the Jews should have welcomed us.
On what basis?
As friends, like King Faisal's son, Amir Faisal, advocated in 1919.
But you didn't come as friends. Arabs. The Jews came to Palestine as emissaries of the West. Our land was partitioned. 2 states were set up, and the Jews were filled with joy, while the Arabs, denied control over their own land, left. Were we supposed to accept that?
Well, the Jews needed a Jewish homeland.
Which was created without Arab consent. What that was the gross injustice committed against the Arab people.
Well, what about the injustices committed against the Jewish people?
Whose fault was that? Certainly not the Arabs.
Well, it was a long history of persecution against the Jews that made it urgent that the Jews have their own nation.
Persecution by the West, not by the Arabs.
And a bitter persecution it was, which made the creation of a Jewish state all the more imperative.
But why? Why was there such a rush to create a Jewish state after World War II? The Nazis were defeated. The Jews were liberated. So what made the need for a Jewish state so urgent?
Well, the events that took place during the war proved that to the Jews, they could only guarantee the survival of people through the creation of their own independent state.
And the only way you had to achieve that goal was by expropriating Arab land?
It wasn't Arab land.
And whose land was it?
Well, the land was under the control of the British, who then relinquished their mandate to the United Nations, which then voted to partition Palestine into 2 separate states.
Yes, but who lived there?
Jews and Arabs.
Yes, but the Jews were latecomers and constituted a small minority of the total population. We Arabs were already living there. And instead of wanting to arrive at some kind of agreement with us over the issue of control of the land, the Jews unilaterally decided that they would create a Jewish state.
That's right. We wanted to create a Jewish state. Would you have allowed us to live and thrive in the Palestinian state?
Absolutely.
Oh, no way. You hate us. That's why the Jews needed their own state. You did not want to coexist with us.
We would have coexisted with the Jews, but the Jews wanted to create their own state at the expense of the Arabs. Under those circumstances, coexistence was out of the question.
That's not fair. The Arab world comprises over 22 countries and over 200 million people. Given the immensity of your countries and the size of your population, why can't the Arabs tolerate the idea of the Jews having a nation of their own?
Because Palestine was supposed to be an Arab state, not a Jewish one. And if the Arabs consent to the West over the issues of Palestine, then the entire Arab world will be reduced to little more than a bunch of colonies to be mercilessly exploited by the West for commercial gain.
So, if you're afraid that if Israel is allowed to exist, then the West will eventually impose its control over the entire Arab world, huh?
That's right, that's what will happen.
You're wrong. For much of our history, you never had control of your lands. For hundreds of years, you were under the domination of the Ottoman Turks. Then after World War I, the French and the British had control of the region. Now, there are 22 independent Arab states. To believe that the Jews would pose some kind of threat upon you, it's ridiculous. We just want to live in peace.
It's easy for you to say. The facts are that in Palestine, we lived on the land, worked on the land, and comprised the vast majority of the inhabitants of the land. So it was an Arab state which should have become an independent Palestinian state.
But the Arabs did get their own state.
Through a contrived partition, which was arbitrarily determined by the British without the consent of the Arabs.
But which was decided upon the consent of the Jewish people.
Who were late arrivals and who had no legitimate claim to the land.
We did have legitimate claim to the land. Why can't you accept it?
Because it's not true. We were there first, it was our land.
No way. It was under Turkish and then British control. In fact, almost every control in the world, every country in the world recognizes the state of Israel, including Egypt and Jordan.
That still does not mitigate the situation of the Palestinian Arabs, who have no country of their own.
Well, you know, maybe if the Palestinian Arabs stopped tossing bombs at us, then something could be worked out.
Well, what can be worked out? We want our land back.
Do you accept the right of the Jewish people to have their own state?
Sure we do, but not on our land.
It is not your land.
It is our land.
You must accept the reality of the existence of the Jewish state.
Says you. Without the backing of the United States, Israel will cease to exist.
And if the Arabs would stop attacking the Jews, then maybe we could finally coexist.
Why should the Arabs accept the presence of a Jewish state?
Because peace is better than war, which just produces suffering.
We want peace too.
Well, terrorism and fanaticism are not the way to achieve that goal.
The Arabs deplore terrorism too, but we understand how our young people can resort to such extreme measures.
I don't understand that. Suicide bombings, targeting innocent civilians, trumpeting terrorists as heroes and martyrs. To me, it seems that most Arabs condone these terrorist acts. Who can forget the image of the Palestinians screaming with joy at the attack of the World Trade Center?
Well, the Palestinians had nothing to do with that. That was a tragic event.
Well, they're celebrating on TV, what's for the whole world to see.
But many other Arabs expressed their condolences for the losses suffered by the American people.
Yet many Arabs still call the U.S. the great Satan and openly avow to drive the Jews into the sea.
And many Jews still refuse to recognize the right of the Palestinians to have their own independent state.
Untrue. Israel does not oppose the creation of a Palestinian state. But she doesn't want a Palestinian state that is intent on destroying the state of Israel.
In 1993, Yasser Arafat said that the PLO recognized the right of Israel to exist.
Then why are the Arab terrorists still attacking the state of Israel?
Because the Jews still occupy lands in Palestinian territory.
But we need to maintain settlements for our self-defense.
The Israelis still do not trust the Palestinians.
How can we? When your people keep on preaching hatred and subject us to terrorist attacks.
You know, if Israel were not so bullheaded, we would not have to resort to violence.
And if the Palestinians are not such two-faced frauds and so full of hatred, we would be better off to trust you and your words.
So what more do the Jews want from us, huh? We acknowledge the right of Israel to exist.
So then, let Israel exist in peace and stop your attacks on
And
us.
stop your occupation of the West
Then
Bank.
stop the suicide
Bring
bombers.
the martyrs to a free and independent Palestinian state.
How can you call those maniacs martyrs?
They are martyrs. They're soldiers who are willing to die for a cause.
Soldiers? No way. They're vicious murderers.
To us, they're soldiers.
And you condone their method?
Some consider terror as others legitimate means of defense.
Are you saying that blowing oneself up for the purpose of killing innocent civilians is justifiable?
Under certain circumstances.
Oh, that's outrageous!
So why are you so outraged? During World War II, your American and British friends dropped millions of tons of bombs on Germany, killing hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians.
Yes, that happened, but while the Germans were being bombed, they knew exactly who was bombing them, why they were being bombed, and in addition, we were trying to stop a terrorist regime that had started the war and was committing genocide.
So are you suggesting that in World War II, the mass killing of civilians was acceptable, but while now it's not?
Oh, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that Nazi Germany was a terrorist regime and a menace to world peace that had to be stopped at all costs. While Israel is a small country that wishes to live in peace with its neighbors.
Meanwhile, Israel is employing the same tactics against the Palestinian Arabs.
Oh, you mean that we're indiscriminately targeting innocent civilians?
That's right. Happened in Lebanon. Happens every time Israel has conducted an incursion into Palestinian camps.
No, what you're referring to is our self-defense operations to root out and arrest terrorists.
You mean self-offense operations designed to terrorize the Palestinian people and keep the Palestinians down.
Not so. We're just trying to defend ourselves. Israel has a right to secure borders.
And Palestine has the right to have its own state. But Israel continues to block our national aspirations. Even the United States favors the creation of a Palestinian state.
But the U.S. insists on a Palestine state whose leadership acknowledges once and for all that Israel has a right to exist and renounces the use of terror.
What are you talking about? Israel has to withdraw from Palestinian lands.
Well, we'll withdraw only when the Palestinian leadership is committed to peace.
It is this Israeli stubbornness that is causing this conflict.
Now that is garbage. The conflict is continuing because the Palestinian leadership still wants to destroy the state of Israel.
And Israel still wants to oppress the Palestinian
And the
people.
Palestinian people still want to destroy the Jews.
No, we don't. We have no argument with the Jews, who are our Semitic brothers. Our argument is that your government refuses to abide by agreements allowing for the creation of a Palestinian state.
In Israel, in Oslo, Israel offered to withdraw from 97% of the West Bank and to relinquish control of the Gaza Strip. The response from the Palestinian leadership was to leave the negotiating table and renew the fighting.
Israel was intent on continuing a policy that was unacceptable for the Palestinian people, so there was no more reason to
But
negotiate.
before the 1967 war, the Palestinians occupied the West Bank. So why didn't the Palestinians found a state then?
Because we were still fighting to regain control of our entire country.
You mean the state of Israel?
That is correct. The state forced upon the entire Arab world in 1948.
And after 4 wars and countless acts of terrorism, you still haven't given up the fight.
That's right.
Given this ongoing hostility toward Israel, why should the Arabs believe that the Arabs have given up the wish to destroy the state of Israel?
We have. But maybe, if Israel will demonstrate a change in attitude, such as acknowledging the legitimacy of our grievances, we will give up that goal.
Yes, you have grievances, but we have grievances too. You Palestinians claim that you are victims, but it is the Jews who are the victims of discrimination, of hatred, of bigotry, of genocide, and we will not let that happen again.
Can't take it anymore! The verbal poo coming out from the both of you is just almost too much to bear. You've tried to jump Mohammed's wife. But what did Mohammed do to you?
I never did any of
Why the
that.
heck you didn't, you lying bastard? You're nothing but a marauder. Hey, if you want, I'll get a nice, tasty, fresh bagel with a nice hot hole. Maybe that will do it for you.
That's telling me, Mohammed. But you're not exactly Mr. Good Two Shoes either, are
Oh,
you?
what do you mean?
What I mean is a certain incident in 1947 involved you two guys.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I do. I remember.
That's right. Moshe. The old memory bank is paying some interest.
In 1947, I had just arrived in Israel, and one night I was walking home after work when 3 men attacked me and beat me and robbed me and then ran away. It was awful. They were speaking Arabic and laughing like the whole thing was one big joke.
What does that have to do with me?
Everything. You were the guy who mugged me.
I did no such thing.
Oh yes, it was you. The same voice.
Oh, come on, that's
I'm
ridiculous.
certain it was you.
I don't care how certain you are, it wasn't me.
You lying piece of filth. It was you. Back then, there was a whole rash of break-ins and muggings, all involving a gang of Arabs who were preying on newly arrived Jews. And you were a member of that gang.
Well, maybe I was. That doesn't mean I was the one who attacked you.
So, there was more than one gang
Yeah, maybe there was.
who targeted Jews like the Nazis did in Europe?
Your people had no business moving in.
Oh, that means I deserve to be beaten up? I was to blame for my own victimization?
Those are your words, not mine.
Don't be coy with me, you stupid shit. I had to shove my fist down your throat now. How would you like that?
Tough talk coming from a twerp like you.
That's telling me, Mohammed.
You mean the twerp who you imagine did your wife?
Touche, Moshe.
Now you're treating us the same way that you have been treated. That is wrong. The Palestinian people never mistreated the Jewish people.
Oh, but you would mistreat them if you could. The Palestinians don't want to coexist with the Jews. They want to destroy the Jewish state and drive them out of the region. Your hatred of us is boundless.
We did not start this fight. We did not ask the Jews to come to Palestine. We did not ask the British to partition our land. We did not ask the United Nations to vote into existence the state of Israel. and not ask Israel to occupy the West Bank.
And the Jews did not ask to be systematically murdered. And the Jews did not ask to be expelled from their own country 2,000 years ago. And the Jews did not ask to be the target for every bigot, crackpot, and religious fanatic with an axe to
And
grind.
the Palestinians did not ask the Jews to take over Arab land.
Arab land? No. Israeli land. Jewish land.
Look, we're back to square one. Just a waste of time.
Do you think negotiations are useless?
Not useless, just fruitless. Because Israel will not negotiate in good faith.
Won't negotiate in good faith? Well, what do you expect from us when we're constantly attacked by suicide bombers? Is that supposed to encourage us to negotiate? It seems that your side does not want to negotiate.
We do want to negotiate. We talked in Washington. We talked in Oslo. We've brought our case before the United Nations. We have appealed to the world for justice, and what has been the result? Nothing. Israel is still blocking the creation of an independent Palestinian state. I mean, for a while, we thought there was actually a chance of arriving at an agreement with Rabin, but when Rabin was assassinated, we really began losing hope.
Assassination was a tragedy.
It was more than a tragedy. It called into question Israel's willingness to abide by the terms of the Camp David Accord, in which both the PLO and the Israeli government accepted each other's right to exist.
We were and still are committed to abide by the terms of the Camp David Accord. However, we do question the willingness of the Palestinians to abide.
You have no grounds for feeling that way.
Yes, we do. Look what happened after Israel gained control of Gaza and the West Bank. Instead of peace, Israel became a target for terror attacks, and the PLO did nothing to stop it.
That's because Israel refused to give up control of the land. We conceded that Israel has the right to exist. What more do you want?
Assurances that the Palestinians will stop attacking the state of Israel.
We gave you those assurances. Apparently you don't want to believe us, which causes us to question whether Israel wants to negotiate in good faith.
Oh, your assurances are a step in the right direction. But the open hostility of the PLO and other Palestinian organizations toward Israel causes us to question whether you are really negotiating in good faith.
Look, what do we gain by negotiating in bad faith, huh?
Time to build up your forces to attack Israel
So
again.
you believe that while we're talking, we're preparing to fight?
That's right. Aren't you fighting us now?
Yes, we are, because we're trying to enforce the terms of an agreement that you are refusing to abide by. Besides, if you don't trust us, what's the point of negotiating with us in the first place?
To achieve peace. But we're at a disadvantage. Israel is a small country surrounded by many Arab countries. So we have to be extra careful, especially considering your real intentions. And we don't want to make concessions that would bring about our own destruction.
Anyone is at a disadvantage in this conflict. It's the Palestinians. Not only do the Israelis have the unqualified support of the United States, they have their own government, their own military. They have the power to enter our homes at any time.
That's right. Within the state of Israel.
Even the West Bank.
Even in the West Bank.
That is Palestinian territory.
There is no Palestinian state. So how can there be Palestinian
Do not
territory?
taunt me. You know that the West Bank is under Palestinian control.
No, that is not the case. Palestinians who live in that region have been granted a certain level of local autonomy, but the entire region is under Israeli control.
It's this kind of arrogance that provokes us to commit desperate acts.
The more you try to fight us, the worse you make it yourselves. Furthermore, I'm not being arrogant, I'm just telling you the truth. That you do not want to accept.
And the struggle must continue.
Struggle for what?
For our liberation.
But the more you keep fighting us, the worse you make it for your people.
We're not making things worse for our own people. Israel's to blame. With your brutal incursions into our homes, Maybe if you stop these incursions and return to the bargaining table, then you could gain peace and security that you say you want.
We cannot negotiate with terrorists, and we have to respond when we're attacked.
But you're being attacked because the Israelis will not leave the area that they said they would leave.
And that's because the Palestinians still hate us. And so we have to maintain a presence amongst you as a defensive measure to prevent the possibility of further
The
attacks.
Palestinians are willing to live in peaceful coexistence with the Jewish state, but is the Jewish state willing to treat us with the respect that we deserve?
We respect the Palestinians. The main obstacle to peace is not Israel's attack or attitude toward the Palestinian people. Rather, it's your continued hostility to us.
Hostility towards you. In 1993, at the Camp David Accord, Palestinians gave flowers to Israeli soldiers and shouted, "Shalom!" We were happy and jubilant, and we wanted to share our joy with the Israeli people.
Well, that attitude certainly has changed. Now you're sending suicide bombers and screaming for our blood.
Because you continue to ignore and disparage our legitimate demands.
So that gives you cause to resort to acts of terror?
We tried negotiations and they failed. So what do you expect us to do? We fight with the means available to us.
Which includes suicide bombers.
If need be.
Oh, you know it's a tactic that will not succeed.
Oh, it's already succeeding. You don't know when or where the next attack will occur.
You're wrong. We would search out and punish all who protect or support those maniacs.
Such talk is pure exaggeration. No matter how harshly you may retaliate, you will never prevent us from attacking.
Well, once again, the Jews are under attack.
Now wait a minute, we're the victims, not you.
No, we're the victims. You are attacking us as just the latest episode of a never-ending assault against the Jewish people, and the latest attempt to fulfill the Nazi quest to eradicate the Jews from the face of the earth. It's because of the hatred shown to us that we had to establish our own country.
That's why the Palestinians need their own country too.
What are you saying? That the Palestinian people have been the victims of genocide?
Seems to be heading in that direction. Like the Jews in Europe. Palestinians have been forced to live in ghettos, and like the Jews in Europe, we're being systematically oppressed, humiliated, and disenfranchised.
You know, the comparison is false. In Europe, the Jews were a tiny, defenseless minority, while in the Middle East, the Palestinian people are part of a larger Arab world in which, again, the Jews are in a tiny minority.
Yet you have your own country, and we don't.
And meanwhile, you want to destroy us. Because of that, you have only yourself to blame under present circumstances.
That is not so. We don't have our own country because Israel has repeatedly blocked our attempts to form a nation.
With good reason.
What's the reason?
Because you are more interested in trying to destroy us than in having your own
Look,
country.
we would build our own country if you just let us.
Yes, you would, but at Israel's expense.
We can coexist.
That's wonderful that you say that, but your words are not consistent with your actions. So how can we believe you?
We have repeatedly come to the bargaining
Oh,
table.
what does that prove?
Well, if we really didn't want peace, then we would not have wasted our time talking with you at the bargaining table.
Every time we start negotiating, invariably we're subjugated to terrorist attacks, which causes us to doubt your sincerity in wanting to negotiate in good faith. To us, it seems that you use a negotiating process really to buy time while preparing to attack us.
We want to resolve our differences, but Israel's lack of good faith has caused the talks to fail.
I disagree. We want to settle our differences too, but not while we're being threatened with terrorist attacks. How can you talk when you keep attacking
The
us?
same way we want to talk when you're launching rockets at us and refusing to withdraw from the West Bank.
We're forced to defend ourselves because the Palestinian authorities have proven time and again that they are either unable or unwilling to stop terrorist groups from attacking us. So what are we supposed to do?
Work with us and not against us to stop the
It
terrorists.
seems that you're part of the problem, not part of the solution.
You hear that, Mohammed? You're nothing but part of the problem. But a problem. What do you think about that?
Yeah. What do you think about that, huh? You stupid, cowardly, idiotic jerk.
Who you calling a jerk?
I am, you pathetic oaf.
Shut your face or I'll shut it for you.
Oh, really? You're gonna make me?
Yeah, Mohammed. You
day I will.
That'll be the day. You and your big talk. You're such a phony, hiding behind all the pseudo-political crap. Like you're supposed to impress people or scare them.
Well, it certainly doesn't impress me.
What are you so smug about? You're worse than he is.
Ha! I'm worse than him? He speaks lies while I tell the truth.
You wouldn't know the truth if it were staring you in the face. You're a sniveling wise guy. You're nothing but a smart alecky know-it-all, and I hate know-it-alls.
And he's a terrible conversationalist, too. The only thing he ever wants to talk about is his beloved Israel.
Israel. Like a broken record. Like this is the only thing the world has to care about? 1/10 of 1% of the world's population is Jewish. And we have to be dealing with this.
Yep. He's so self-centered, that's why we can't agree on anything.
Shut
And that's why we can never really connect.
Oh, shut your face, fool. You're just as bad as he is. And maybe even worse. Your complaints about the so-called injustices committed against the Palestinian people as if they're the only people in the world who got the short end of the stick. I tell you guys, are just such pathetic crying babies.
Well, we did get the short end of the stick.
You deserved it. If all of you weren't such reckless, irresponsible, bomb-throwing terrorists, then maybe the Palestinians would have had their own country by now.
So you're suggesting that all Arabs are terrorists?
No, I'm not saying that. But I will say that most Palestinians seem to support, or at least condone, what the terrorists want to accomplish, which is to sabotage the peace process and eradicate the state of Israel.
Well, hello, we want to coexist with the state of Israel. It's Israel that does not want to coexist with us.
Then why are we fighting?
Because Israel refuses to make the compromises in order to achieve a lasting peace.
This is nonsense. We have repeatedly offered to withdraw from Palestinian areas, but every time we do so, the terrorist attacks just keep getting worse.
But most Palestinian people desire peace.
This is hard to believe, given the open hatred your people demonstrate against us.
Look, we don't hate you, we just want our own country.
Meanwhile, your people burn our flag, vilify the Jews, vow revenge, and publicly demand that Israel be destroyed.
Part of that is your fault. You forced us from our land and caused us to become refugees. So how do you expect us to feel?
Well, nobody told you to leave. You left on your own.
How could we have stayed in the country when you took our land and deprived us of our country, huh?
Well, we took the land that you abandoned, and then we developed it. We didn't deprive you of anything, you deprived us.
Not so. The moment Israel declared its independence, the Palestinians became a disenfranchised people.
Well, but now Israel exists. So, what do you want from us?
Stop blocking us in creating our own state.
Well, not while you attempt to create your own state at Israel's expense.
That Israel was founded at our expense.
Israel was founded because it was the only way for the Jewish people to guarantee their
No,
survival.
Israel was founded because the British sold out the Jews who became willing pawns in the struggle to control the Holy Land and the entire region with its huge oil reserves.
No, it had nothing to do with the British. The Jews were destined to return to the state of Israel, to the land of where they had been kings, and which had been promised to them in the Bible.
Meanwhile, 2,000 years ago, the Jews were evicted by the Romans, and years later, we took possession of the land. So where are we supposed to go now? Huh? Just disappear because the Jews will insist that the land is now theirs?
Let me remind you that in 1948, the United Nations approved the creation of the state of Israel.
That UN vote was opposed by the entire Arab world.
And you defied the will of the world.
First of all, at that time, most of the world was not even represented by the UN. So the vote represented the will of only a small proportion of the world's population anyway. China wasn't represented. Most of Africa was not represented, and much of Southeastern Asia was not represented. So the vote was not really valid, was it?
The vote was valid. Every member nation participated in the vote, even the entire Arab bloc.
We had no choice but to oppose that vote.
You did have a choice. You could have cooperated.
It's easy for you to say. We were the ones being disenfranchised.
Your objections were hogwash.
Our objections were right. First, no one had the right to take away our land. And second, the wishes of the Arab people were completely ignored, as if we counted for nothing.
Well, the matter was debated. Your views were heard, and it was decided that the Jews could return to the land of their origin from which they had been forced to flee.
But that happened over 2,000 years ago.
So what? The Jews were destined to return to the land.
What do you mean, destined?
It was inevitable that the Jews returned to the historical land.
Which never would have happened if not for the backing of the West.
No, the Jews
With the help of the United States,
Well,
who
we
led
fought
the
our
way.
own fight and won. The United States did not come to our aid.
No way. Without the backing of the United States, you took our land by force. And here we are today, still arguing about it.
The Jews want to coexist with your people.
My people just want justice.
And my people...
And my people want justice. My people want justice. What a shameless hypocrite you are. You couldn't care less about justice for your people. All you want is personal revenge.
No, that's not true. As a member of the PLO Legislative Council, I represent an entire constituency.
What the hell is the PLO? Is that like the U.S. House of Representatives? We're supposed to believe that you actually represent other people. Huh.
You know, you're nothing but a hack politician. How much do great make it bribes?
Idiot.
And you are a sniveling liar.
Gentlemen, I believe that you two are now finally engaging in honest and direct conversation. How refreshing.
You know, I'm glad you were mugged and beaten back in 1947. You deserved it.
Said just like the deluded fool you always were.
I'm not the fool. Do you think I forgot what you tried to do to my daughter?
What do you mean?
After you busted into my house, not only did you molest my wife, you also went after my 14-year-old daughter.
Now this is getting good.
This is a bunch of crap. Now I know you're sick.
You can deny it all you want, but it's true. You know, years later, my daughter told me about it. She said it was you.
You're wrong.
Are you calling my daughter a liar?
Yes, I am calling your daughter a liar.
Women don't lie about that sort of thing.
You people lie about anything that suits your purposes. For all I know, it was you who molested your
You
own daughter.
unmitigated bastard! You scum of the earth! How dare you say such a thing!
Because it's true. I heard that you people engage in all kinds of unusual sexual practices.
Wild running dog!
Here we go again. More name calling.
Yes, more name calling. Defenses now down. Fists now up. Pretense being superseded by the glaring light of open confrontation. Isn't it refreshing? Isn't this wonderful?
Now, as I was about to say before we were so rudely interrupted, my people want peace.
My people want to be respected.
And my people want security.
We gladly recognize the state of Israel, but Israel has to recognize our rights too.
And we do recognize your rights. In Israel, your rights are fully recognized and
That's
protected.
avoiding the issue. The Arabs are a minority in our own
It's
land.
not your land anymore.
That's because we were forced to pay the price for Europe's callous mistreatment of the Jews.
You know, you do not accept the reality and finality of the situation.
Well, why should we accept something that was forced upon us?
After World War II,
World War II. World War II. Why did World War II have to do with us? We didn't start World War II. The Arabs had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with what happened to the Jews in Europe. So what do you want from us?
but the war did happen. And because of the war, it was imperative that the Jews have their own
You
state.
got your own state! And the Palestinians are still being denied a state of their own.
Well, you could have your own state too if you agreed that Israel should have secure and recognizable borders.
Why shouldn't we agree to something like that?
Then why are we arguing?
Because Israel refuses to accept that there must be a Palestinian state too.
And the PLO refuses to let Israel live in peace.
And Israel refuses to treat the Palestinian people with respect.
And the Palestinians want to destroy us.
Simply not true. If Israel wants to destroy us, it could. Israel wants to destroy us.
No way. It is you who want to destroy us.
We're the victims of Israeli aggression.
And we're the victims of your aggression. That's why we have to maintain a military presence to defend ourselves against you.
You know, the United Nations has repeatedly called for the creation of a Palestinian state with secure and recognizable borders. Israel is obligated to abide by these resolutions.
And the Arabs were obligated to accept the UN resolution that ratified the creation of the State of Israel. But instead of accepting the vote, what happened was, as soon as Israel declared its independence, we were attacked by 5 Arab countries.
The creation of the State of Israel was an intolerable affront to every Arab in the region.
You know, we offered the olive branch of peace, and we threw it right back at our face. So what are we supposed to conclude with that?
That the Arab people were angry, but Israel and her Western allies wouldn't budge.
So you converted the region into a battlefield.
No, Israel did that.
All we did was declare our independence. You were the ones who started the fighting.
And you were the ones who provoked us.
And you were the ones who refused to negotiate.
And you were the ones who refused to compromise.
And you were the ones who wouldn't let us live in peace.
And you were the ones who took our land and made us refugees.
And you were the ones who vowed to destroy us.
Destroy you? In 1956, Israel invaded Egypt. In 1967, grabbed the West Bank and Gaza. And in 1982, invaded Lebanon. So who was trying to destroy who?
We were just trying to defend
Oh,
ourselves.
you mean trying to crush us?
You're the ones who are trying to crush us.
So why are we in the refugee camps?
Because you're too busy fighting us instead of opting for peace.
Leave the West Bank and Gaza, and then maybe we'll stop fighting.
Well, we'll leave when we have assurances that our state will not be attacked.
Why would we want to attack Israel?
Because the PLO still wants to liberate the entire state of Israel.
That's no longer our goal.
We're supposed to believe that?
Yes.
Despite your repeated vows to destroy Israel?
Yes.
Well, what evidence can you prove that you no longer want to destroy Israel?
The 2000 Camp David Accord.
That meeting was a farce, a cynical ploy on the part of the PLO to consolidate its position in the West Bank, while at the same time demanding the right of return to the country it wants to destroy.
No, not destroy, liberate.
No, destroy. It's common knowledge that the PLO wants to destroy.
Not
Israel.
true. We want peace.
You have a strange way of showing it. In fact, while you continue talking about establishing a Palestinian state, you continue your vicious policy of terror against
Policy
the
of
Israeli
terror.
people.
The PLO categorically deplores all acts of violence.
This is garbage. The terrorists are based in your territory and they have links to your organization. Instead of prosecuting them like terrorists, so don't tell me that you deplore terrorism.
That's what I'm telling you.
So you haven't acted on your own words. So we've had to go after these so-called martyrs ourselves. Why do you keep treating those maniacs as martyrs?
We're doing what we can to suppress terror.
If that's true, then you're doing a very poor job of it. And if this is the way the PLO can do, well, then I have to wonder how much real authority the PLO has.
The current president of the Provisional Palestinian Government is in full control of the situation.
Then why can't he root out the terrorists who are under his jurisdiction? Or maybe he just does not want to root them out.
What are you talking about? He can do the job.
But if he can't do the job, then why some other Palestinian leader will have to do it? Or Israel itself.
We can police ourselves, thank you.
And prove it by stopping your children from throwing stones at our soldiers.
That's impossible.
Why?
Because the presence of the Israelis is provoking them.
We're to blame for your children attacking our soldiers?
Yes.
This is utter nonsense. You're just using your children to attack us.
No, we're not.
No, it's you who are doing inciting. And if you think that we will tolerate being attacked by your children, you'd better think again.
You mean that you will hurt our children?
No, I mean that we will retaliate against those who incite your own children to commit acts of violence. Meaning people like you.
Meaning like me, huh? You're out of your
No,
mind.
you're out of your mind. In fact, you're the problem.
Yeah, you're the problem.
No, you're the problem. You're inciting your children to attack us.
Wrong. Our children simply want Israel to leave.
And who's telling them that the Israel should leave?
The Israelis through their own punitive actions.
No, it's people like you who are teaching your children to hate us. And that doesn't do you and your cause any good.
Israel has given them cause to hate.
No, we want to live in peace with all our neighbors.
Then all you have to do is leave those areas that are under Palestinian jurisdiction.
Well, we were in the process of doing that, but instead of leading us to peace, it's produced more fighting.
With Israel being the perpetrator.
And the Palestinians being the instigators.
And the Israelis being vicious.
And the Palestinians being fanatical. Besides, why would Israel want to continue fighting?
Because Israel wants to push every Palestinian out of the West Bank and Gaza to establish a greater Israeli state.
Pure fantasy. We accept the eventuality of a Palestinian state, and we're prepared to live with a state of peaceful coexistence, provided there is a mutual goal.
We feel the same way.
Then prove it by stopping your attacks against us. And stop using your own children as suicide rockets.
Stop using the Israeli army to make war on Palestinian people.
Stop making vicious, slanderous lies that Israeli people have massacred civilians.
That's what the Israelis did during their incursion in 2002.
This is an unmitigated lie. In that operation, the Israeli army went after and destroyed terrorist networks that were cooperating with complete impunity from within your territory.
Let's get down to brass tacks then. The facts are that Israel is in violation of the UN Resolution 242, which calls for Israel to withdraw from the West Bank and Gaza Strip, and General Assembly Resolution 3236, which says that the Palestinians have the right to return to their homes and property from which they had been uprooted. When will Israel comply with these resolutions?
When the Palestinians are ready to accept General Assembly Resolution 181, which the Arabs flagrantly ignored when they attacked Israel in 1948. We wanted to live in peace and establish our state in accordance with the UN resolution. But instead, you chose war. So don't you start telling me about UN resolutions.
And what about dismantling the hundreds of Jewish settlements that the Israelis built after they occupied the rest of Palestine in 1967?
What about the settlements?
According to UN Resolution 242, Israel is required to withdraw its armed forces from those areas that it occupied in the 1967 war. Instead, there are now hundreds of Jewish settlements in the occupied areas. Now that's not right.
Well, we would have gone to the West Bank in the first place if Nasser hadn't ordered the UN peacekeepers out of Sinai.
And what did that have to do with the West Bank?
It was obvious that Nasser wanted to start a war. Therefore, we had to reinforce and expand our defensive perimeter, which meant going into the West Bank.
No, you just wanted to grab more land and complete the process started in 48, when you wound up evicting half of the Palestinians.
In 1948, the Arabs attacked us. What do you expect us to do? Not defend ourselves?
A Jew talking about defending himself? Isn't it a little too late for that kind of talk? How come they didn't defend themselves in 1935? Franchise them. What kind of people would have taken that kind of treatment?
What are you saying? That the Jews let themselves be victimized?
That's right, Dumb. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's why your pal Mohammed has absolutely no respect for you.
Talk for myself.
Okay, mister. You're